Hey guys, Rousey here. Just a quick one. I promised I would get on every single episode and promote the local pundit. Link is in the description down below to his channel. Please go over and help him get to 2,000 subscribers. That is the local pundit. It is a really good show. Great thing to watch. Gets you Wrexham feel every single day. So head on over to the local pundit and give him a subscribe. If I'm anything, I'm a man of my word because I promised him I would do this every single episode. So get on it. Links in the description down below. All right, now on with the show. Oh, yeah, nah, this is Rousey's Wrexham Roundup. She'll be right, mate. Welcome back to another week of Rousey's Wrexham Roundup. I am joined here today with a very special guest who I just appeared on their 100th episode. I'd like to say I was going to get to 100 episodes, but I've got to start all over again. But hey, that's another story because these guys eat more chips. I've been supporting them for a long time. Listen to every single episode that they release on Fridays, and they've just released their 100th episode. So I thought, what better time to get Welshtechie on? Welshtechie, welcome to Rousey's Wrexham Roundup, the new show from Two Beards Media. Used to be the Two Beards Wrexham podcast, but now it's just your boy Rousey. And I'm here with Welshtechie. Mate, how is it going?
G'day, mate. How you going? I'm just, funny enough, after yesterday, I am just unpacking the flag as we speak because it needs to get aired out. So yep, that was came up yesterday at the back of the stand. So I've just popped that away. So that's great. But yeah, I'm good, man. How are you? You all right?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, love that flag. I loved your little April Fool's thing that you did with the eat more salad, don't let the chips win. That was brilliant.
As if, as if that would ever happen. That'll never ever happen. I promise you.
I tried eating a salad once. Uh, no, just
No,
doesn't fulfill you.
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Three bites in, you like just give me just get me a snag.
Exactly. Where's my sausage? Give me that fucking sausage.
So we're going to get straight into it. Wrexham and the game against none other than Burton Albion, or Wrexham 2.0, as I like to affectionately coin it. Um, wow. Does it get much bigger than this?
No, to be honest with you. By the way, so where I sit in the Wrexham Lager stand, I sit just behind the old directors box. So if you imagine Ryan and all the other big wigs, they're in the other stand in the Betty Buzz suite. But the old directors box, that's where the directors used to sit back in the 70s. I'm literally just behind that. So I gave Fleur a wave for you yesterday as she was walking down the stairs because obviously she was there yesterday. She was sitting in the front row of the old director. I said, "Hey, Rousey says hi." She didn't say anything to me. There you go.
She probably doesn't even know I exist.
No, I mean, does it? Your question was, does it get any bigger than this? No, absolutely not. It doesn't get any bigger than this. It's funny. I was listening because obviously I live in South Wales. Obviously, Wrexham is in North Wales, so I have a 3-hour travel up and then I have a 3-hour travel back home. So the 3 hours going down is great because I get to listen to everybody who is kind of either they were streaming at the time, so while I was watching, or I watched the wrap up stuff. So I was watching you and Josh from the local pundit yesterday. Well, I wasn't watching because I was driving, but I had you on audio, which was great. And I just, you know what I mean, your positivity, and you're absolutely right. When you said from the beginning that we were going to get second place. You said from the beginning. Now I have to admit, no, I wasn't. I was totally doubting Thomas. I was like, yeah, come on. I mean, it would be lovely, but be realistic. All these big teams, we're going to be lucky to get kind of ninth, which, I would be happy with. But to be second with 5 games to go, and particularly after yesterday and the atmosphere yesterday, well, the last 15 minutes of atmosphere yesterday, just it blows my mind. As somebody who's followed the club for as long as I have, absolutely blows my mind to bits.
Oh, just from a follower from the outside watching all this happen. I mean, look, there's a part of me. It's like, yeah, fucking, I was right from the start of the season. I predicted Birmingham first, Wrexham second. Haven't really got into the rest of the list, but to know that, like, my boys are going to do it. It's just
You kept the faith, brother. You kept the faith when a lot of let's remember, and I'm going to say this now on record, right? Every single person on every single social media outlet, including ours, that uses the term Scottish, Viking, Jesus, needs to start paying you residuals because that came from you. You started that, right? That's your copyright. They should put a penny in the pot every time somebody says it. And at the moment, there are a lot of people saying it, particularly after yesterday.
Oh, it's good to know I have some sort of influence on the scene. It might not be the most positive of influences, but hey, it's good to know. I mean, to be in the position we're in now and the way all the chips fell yesterday with Wickham losing, Charlton drawing, like it's really in the bag. And I think I calculated we only literally need like two or three more wins and we can draw or lose the rest. It doesn't matter. And we're going up.
I
So,
mean, it certainly puts us in the driving seat. We are absolute. This is now, without a shadow of a doubt, ours to lose. If we mess this up now, it is entirely down to us. It's not down because all we need to do, and I know it sounds easy, we win the next 5 games. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. We are now up officially.
mm.
It's done. So absolutely now we are in the driving seat. If we mess up, it's down to us.
So
Obviously, winning those 5 games is going to be a lot more difficult than it sounds. Certainly.
well, Blackpool away is going to be tough. I think everyone's
Yeah,
expecting Blackpool away to be pretty tough. It's a hard place to go, and
yeah.
Charlton at home.
Steve Bruce is really turning them around at the moment. They're really on a bit of a decent run. So yeah, that's gonna be. I mean, I'm very fortunate. So I've got a ticket for Wigan next week, so I'll be there. I've got a ticket, obviously, because I've got a season ticket for Bristol Rovers at home on Good Friday, and I'm one of the very, very lucky ones to have a ticket for Blackpool as well. I'll be at Charlton because I've got the season ticket. The only thing I need to do now is try and get a Lincoln ticket when they come on sale, and I'll be able to get the full set. But so I'll be certainly at 4 of the 5. Blackpool at the moment, you're absolutely right, are on a run. I mean, Charlton, who'd have thought, when we were looking, because the murmur was going around, obviously, around the crowd yesterday. I don't know whether you could pick it up on stream, on TV, but when Reading scored, straight away, everybody started shouting back to back to back, and Town are going up, and so and then obviously we're jumping on all our phones because I had my brother next to me, and he's jumping on his phone. I'm jumping on my phone. I'm like, oh my God, Reading have scored a penalty or whatever. And then we're looking and we're going, and Charlton are 2-0 down. I mean, who'd have said that against Lincoln City? Charlton are 2-0 down. All right, they pulled it back to 2-2, but it's still, like you said, rightly said at the beginning, that's 2 points dropped. Anything can happen, and this is the thing. You've now followed, EFL football for a number of seasons. Obviously, you followed it much longer than that through Coventry City and stuff like that. This last 7 games, it always throws up the surprises. The team where you're thinking, oh, there's no way that team's going to beat that team because they're in dog shit at the moment, and this team are actually flying high. And then suddenly they'll pull this amazing result out the bag. And that's the thing, you see, that you never know exactly what's going to happen, which is why I'm a lot happier today, as you can tell, than I was yesterday. I was in Tux yesterday, and my brother. I mean, Jim and I have been going to matches for a long, long time, season ticket holders, everything else. I've never seen him in kittens as much as he was yesterday. He was properly head in the hands, getting irate, screaming, shouting, whatever. When Stephen Fletcher scored the penalty, he jumped out of his seat and ran down the walkway going, come on. He was properly energized yesterday, and I'm like, wow. I mean, that's normally me because I'm the emotional one of the brothers. He's normally the kind of level-headed, calm one of us, and I'm the, goes off like a bottle of pop, gets really angry. I mean, I get into trouble sometimes because I sit behind the director's box. I'm kind of FF this and F that and F the other, and obviously there are some fairly posh people in front of me, so I have to be fairly careful sometimes. But yesterday I was actually kind of just calm it down. Just the boys will do their thing. Yes, it's taking a while, but what do you expect? Of course, Burton are going to park the bus. Of course, we're going to be tough to break them down. We are trying hard. You can see that the boys are there. They're doing their thing. Parky making that change at halftime was a big thing because my brother said to me halftime, Parky needs to sort this out. We need to change plan. He needs to get players on, needs to move things around. We've got an opportunity here. And I said, oh, come on, this is Parky. He's not going to do anything. He's going to change in 70 minutes. Again, I was massively wrong. Parky did the right thing. He went in there, spoke to James McLean. He said, "Listen, I'm going to take you off because I need something a bit more sharper on that wing." And apparently Jimmy took it well. He said, "Yeah, no problem at all." Obviously, with that tackle on Dobson, when he came off to be treated, he came off right in front of us because we are. If we were behind the director's box, we're also behind the dugouts. So we saw George Dobson. He came off and he rolled his shin down. He had a massive gash on the very, very front of his leg, where obviously the studs had caught him in and ripped up his thing. So he had I would say it's probably about, I don't know, 3 inches, a 3-inch gash, something like that, which was, there was blood pouring out of it. So you were thinking, well, if you're not going to change him now, they're probably going to change him half time. And he did. He said, let's get you off. And to be fair, I hung around a little bit yesterday to see who was coming out and whatever. And I saw George Dobson. George Dobson came out probably about an hour afterwards, and I actually spoke to him. I said, "Are you all right? How's your leg?" And he said, "Yeah, the leg's fine." He said, "It was just precaution. I came off." He said, big, obviously that big, massive, toothy grin that he's got. He was properly grinning from ear to ear, and he sort of said, "Yeah, I'm fine. No, the leg's fine." Proper grinning and everything. So yeah, I don't have any doubt they'll patch him together. And I mean, it's funny. Just before they kicked off, he took some painkillers, which you probably didn't see on TV, because he went over to the dugout. He asked for a bottle of water, grabbed a bottle of water, and he just popped some painkillers in and drank some water just before they kicked off. So obviously there's something that's still there. There's obviously he's carrying something, so they'll be patching him together. But at the moment, he's such a key player for us. You kind of, I mean, for me, the massive loss, and I don't know whether you agree, Rousey, the massive loss for me is Andy Cannon.
Yeah.
It really limits our options in midfield, and he would have loved this kind of running because he's a proper battler, a fighter. He's a real kind of he'd have got in their faces, and he does that. He goes, because I must have some ginger in him, I reckon, because he goes bright red and he's sweating and he's properly at him and whatever. And I'm thinking he would have loved this, and losing him, I think, is a big. It's a kind of a big kind of. It was a big disadvantage to Parky, I think, because he's probably thinking, "Yeah, I could do." Because you put Cannon on yesterday, he would have run him ragged. He would have absolutely teared him apart. So yeah, so incredible. I mean, the first 74 minutes was absolute carnage and pain and whatever. But I always had faith in the back of my head, thinking there is no way Burton can keep us out for 80 minutes. We are too good. We are too good.
It was one-way traffic even when there was 11 men on the field. It was one-way traffic the whole time. I barely even think that they got it out into their own half for most of that. I mean, it's bar a few, heart in your mouth, nuts in your hand, bloody run at it when that they took at us, maybe one or two throughout the whole game, but it was a classic. I mean, every single time I've seen teams go down to 10 men early on, it's a classic park the bus situation, and it is so hard to break down. And I think I said it on the pod with Josh, is that the biggest mistake Burton made is that they didn't come at us. They sat off, parked the bus, tried to play and waste time for a draw. And when that goal went in, they didn't know what to do. And that's why we saw a couple minutes later another goal go in, and then Marriott obviously to finish it off. I mean, that goal in itself was what I loved about it. It was a direct juxtaposition to Sam Smith's goal. Sam Smith did the same thing on the other side, Jack Marriott on the other side. So I just thought this is perfect. And Sam Smith, you can it. I think he's hooked. I think he's got the Wrexham bug. You can see it when he scores.
I think so. I mean, the goal machines like Sam Smith, they will always feed off the fans, because being a goal scorer, I mean, a lot of the grunt work is often done by the defense, and they very, very rarely get the credit, but they often get the criticism when things go wrong. But because there's a person up front or two people up front who are scoring goals, they get a lot of the plaudits because they score the goals, and they become fan favourites. I mean, my favourite player of all time is Carl Connolly. I've got his shirt on today, funnily enough. I'm going to stand up for 1 second. So this is an original 1992-93 Wrexham shirt. It's a Welsh Cup shirt, so it's an actual Welsh Cup winner's shirt because we won the Welsh Cup that year, and it is signed by the man himself, Carl Connolly. So that's his.
That is a nice looking shirt. They did some good shirts back then, eh?
Oh yeah. So this is the original gold shirt. So this season's gold shirt is based on this gold shirt, or this one is a bit more yellowy than gold. So Carl Connolly, because Carl Connolly just scored for fun, he was an absolute, but he was also a real hard man with it. He would not take any shit. He would properly get in opposite players' faces. You know what I mean? Him and Joey Jones were very, very close as a mentor, because Joey was very much like that. He was kind of, do you know what I mean? He'd get in the players' faces. He'd have little tricks and whatever. He used to have a favourite thing where he would say, when a ball was coming over the top, just before you were about to jump, if he's got a defender on his back, he would go behind him and grab the balls of the defender behind him, so the defender couldn't jump, and then he would jump up and get the ball first. The little things like that, little tricks that he would have.
My type of guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I mean, Joey, bless his heart, he's not been well recently because for a number of reasons. But so he's a shadow of his former self. But in the day, he was Mr. Wrexham. When you meet him, you have that thing, and I'm sure you'll get this at some point when you come in November. At some point, you're bound to meet some of the players, and you will get that kind of try not to be a fangirl. Oh my God, it's so. Whenever I was in that presence of Joey Jones, absolutely, just the guy, just the awe that you had for him as a player and as a person. But he was very understated. He was very down to earth. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, what, are you all right? How's things? Blah blah blah. When he used to walk his dog after he kind of retired and was still working for Wrexham, when he was walking his dog, my Uncle Ken would meet him in the park when he was walking his dog, and they'd walk together and talk about football while they were walking their dogs together. You know what I mean? I mean, this guy has played for Liverpool, the first Welshman to ever win a European Cup. And yet he's walking his dog like he's, whatever. It doesn't matter. So just the guy is incredible. But that's the thing, Sam Smith, he's going to feed off the fans. And you can see yesterday when he jumped up on the hoardings and he's giving it he's soaking it up. And that, for his confidence and for us, therefore, him scoring goals in the last 5 games is going to be key. Because actually yesterday, I thought Sam Smith was off it a little bit. He was finding it difficult to get into the game at some points. Because the fact that Burton were so defensive, those centre backs were really trying to wrap him up and not giving him much space. The biggest mistake they did was, like you rightly said, when we scored, they then backed off. They tried to back off and tried to come out a little bit because they needed the points. That gave him space. Then when he had space, then he could run riot, which is exactly what he did. But to begin with, because they were smothering him so much, he was finding it quite difficult. But you can see when he scored, he jumped on that hoarding and he was properly just soaking it up. And there's a couple of guys who I met before the game, a couple of Americans who was having a good chat to, and I was sort of saying, where are you sitting? Where are you going to experience? And he went, oh, we're in the tech end. I think we're about 3 rows from the front. I think that's exactly where he went to. So they would have got the prime view yesterday of this
straight up his shorts.
Demigod, right up his trouser leg, giving it the big I am, and you're thinking, oh man, what an experience. I mean, it's the one thing you know what I mean? I mean, I'm very, very fortunate because I go to a lot of home and away games. I get to experience both the away and the home and whatever. And it's the one thing, particularly at home, is I do think a lot about all the people who are abroad, wherever they may be, whatever continent they may be, whatever time zone they may be watching it. And I'm thinking, it's great watching it on telly, but I really wish you could just all be here and just experience what it's like to be in person, because it is, and you're going to get it in November, which is great. You will get the full, experience of because you feel it, you feel it all, which is incredible. So yeah, I'm just absolutely buzzing for that. And it just as a run-in, it's going to be hairy, scary as it always is, as it was last year. I mean, this is very similar, isn't it, to last year? I mean, I when I spoke on our pod, I asked you the question. It is very similar, isn't it?
Very, very similar. Except I kind of feel now we're in a little bit of a better position than we ever have been in our previous promotion seasons. I mean, look, we got Wigan coming up on the weekend. Then you back that up over Easter with Blackpool and who's after Blackpool?
Bristol Rovers on the Friday first, then Blackpool on the Monday.
Yeah, Bristol Rovers. So you got 2 easy games, reasonably, that you would think would be easy. I mean, yeah, look, you would expect us to go win those. Blackpool's going to be the hard one.
Yeah, definitely. Wigan away is going to be tough, but they are not. They're 19th or 20th at the moment. No, 19th, I think, or they maybe a bit better, maybe 17th. They're not firing all 4 cylinders at the moment. The problem you have, and I don't know whether you've seen this, is the Wrexham factor. Every single team who plays against us lifts their game by 15%, 20%.
Yeah.
I was listening to it on Exeter on last Saturday. I was listening to some because I spoke to some fans at half time. Because the good thing about the away end is you can just walk along, and actually then you can talk to home fans, which is brilliant. Because I got to talk to some home fans on, asking about their season and everything else, and they were saying, "Where's this Exeter been all season?" And I've heard that before. Opposing fans saying to us, "How come they're playing this well against you when the rest of the season they've been absolute crap?" And there's a Wrexham factor there where teams want to punch us in the face because everybody hates us, everybody loves us apparently. They play that extra 15-20%. So there's going to be that factor. But I've got faith now that after the Exeter game where we were sublime, we didn't put a foot wrong against Exeter. It was from moment 1 to moment 93, we were done. Cambridge was a bit of an anomaly. We let them play their game. Tuesday nights are always difficult because you have to travel, and I know the whole thing about them flying. Thanks, Liam Randall, for stirring that bucket of crap up. They were flying, and that makes it easier, but it's still a Tuesday night. It's still a disruptive game. It's very difficult to get into because it's a midweeker, and because you're playing 3 games effectively in 7 days, as we were, it's very difficult to get into that. So, you were right. Very interesting you said yesterday when you talked to Josh. Josh saw it as a defeat. You didn't. And I agree with you. I don't see it as a defeat. It was disappointing, but I didn't see it as a defeat. And we could take anything away from it. I mean, remember 6 months ago, we couldn't win away to save our lives, could we?
Nah, we didn't have the best away form.
No, we struggled really badly, didn't we? We struggled. Now we're winning, what, 6 out of 7 away?
Yeah, 6 out of 7 away at the moment.
Something like that. So, you're just thinking, well, I'll take that every single day of the week compared to how we were 6 months ago. And yeah, I just think now the boys have got enough confidence in them. They've got the stability of knowing that the 11 who are playing, that they know that they're holding on to some fitness, some of them, but you're getting the same players now who are really fitting in. They're fitting like jigsaw puzzles. They know this whole thing of how people are going to play, how so-and-so is going to play off so-and-so, how so-and-so is going to play with so-and-so. Another clean sheet yesterday. That's what, 21 for Arthur and 24 in total, or something
ridiculous
crazy like
the amount of clean sheets we got this
crazy
season.
And that's not just Arthur, don't forget. Everybody goes, clean sheets, well done, Arthur. Yeah, well done, Arthur, or well done, Mark Howard, or well done, Callum Burton. But it's not just that, because you have to rely on your defence as well. And at the moment, that back 3 to back 5, if you take your wing backs as well, they've been rock solid. Absolutely rock solid. Yes, Owen O'Connell makes mistakes. Max Cleworth makes mistakes. Lewis Brunt makes mistakes. Tom O'Connor makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. You can't, have a go at somebody and go, get rid of them if they make one mistake. If it's constant, then fair enough. You could say, okay, fine, no problem. But there's a reason why we've got so many clean sheets, and that's part of it. And you said it yourself, and I say this all the time, and it's brilliant you back this up. And I've heard you say this as well, you see. Strikers win games, defenses win championships. And that is absolutely spot on. That is absolutely spot on. Because, if you could keep them out the net, it doesn't matter how many goals you score up front, you're always going to get at least 1 point.
Yep.
So if your defense is solid, you're there, you're done. So I think the boys have got confidence. I think it'll still be a hard run-in. But we've got to remember now, right, that this is now in our hands. All right? Lots of people are looking at Charlton going, what are Charlton going to do? What are Wycombe going to do? What are Stockport going to do? Fuck them. It doesn't matter. Makes no difference now what they're going to do. They can scream and shout and jump up and down and get all the points they want in the world. If we can get 5 more wins, or like you said, 3 wins, possibly in 2 draws, it's done. Doesn't matter what they do. Doesn't matter what they do. So that's what we need to concentrate now. We need to concentrate on our game and our performances.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're going to expect, obviously, us to show up against Wigan. We tend to do pretty well against them. In our first round, we did really, really well against them. And then, obviously, after Wigan, Bristol Rovers, they're kind of falling apart at the moment, so it's a good time to go up against them. So you would like to think those are going to be your 2 wins needed. Blackpool, you would take a draw at Blackpool any day of the week. And then, look, I honestly think Wrexham's promotion will be against Charlton at home. I think that's where it's going to come down to.
It's funny you say that because I was talking to. I've got Dave who sits next to me one side, and I've got Jim and sits on the other side. And I was sort of saying, what would we want? Do we want to get promoted to Blackpool? Do we want to get promoted at Charlton, or do we want to try and push for Lincoln? And they all said, "Oh, Charlton." Let's do it at home. Let's have the pitch invasion. Let's do the whole party thing, and then we can go to Lincoln, get the fancy dress on, because traditionally, last day of the season, it's always fancy dress day. So you always dress up as whatever you want or whatever, and you just go. If you're being relegated, if you're being promoted, if you're just mid-table, it doesn't matter. You always get your fancy dress on and you go and party because it's like end of a long season and everybody's done whatever. So they were but saying, let's get it done at Charlton. Let's get it done at home. Let's get the party started here, and then we can all go to Lincoln. And because I promise you, I think they'll offer about 2,000 away tickets. I think something like that, from what I can gather. There will be far more than 2,000 in Lincoln for that weekend. I guarantee you. There'll be double that because everybody will want to go and party. They'll all want to fill the pubs. They'll want to watch it on TV in Lincoln. They'll want to be around each other. They will be properly wanting to party. Ideally, I don't want to go to Lincoln and have to get anything, because we saw yesterday against Charlton how difficult Lincoln can be.
Mm.
And I don't want to have to rely on that, thinking, right, okay, well, let's, because we've not done the job earlier. I want to, we need something from Lincoln. I'd rather just go to Lincoln and go, well, do you know what? Doesn't matter what we do today. Like, do you remember year before last, Torquay, the last game in the National League, where we'd already won the league. It was all over. And that was proper party. I mean, I went to that one, and that was a proper party, because that was the one where all the players came out afterwards and they were all trying to get Foz to sign the contract, and they were proper partying. And that's what you want. You kind of want that, where you can enjoy it and just sing, champions again, ole ole, or back to back to back, ole ole, or whatever. Just because that away end will go nuts, as they always do. That's what I'd like to see. But yeah, you're right. I think
first team in EFL history in the top 5 tiers to go back to back to back. That's huge.
That's massive. I mean, the thing for me being, I mean, I'm one of the, I'm going to say dying breed, but I don't mean it that way. I remember the last time we were in the Championship, and the only time we've ever been in the Championship. In the 160 years we've been a club, we've only ever been at that level for 3 seasons in total across the 160 years. And that was between 78, 79, 79, 80 and 80, 81 before we got relegated. And then from then on, we were then battling to stay either in the lower divisions of the EFL or eventually when we bounced out. And I remember, I'm lucky to remember those times, because I was, 77, 78, I was 9, and then I was 10, 11, 12. So it was the proper time where, and those were the days, where, so I'm from a little village outside Wrexham, that's where I was born, called Caergurley, which is about 3 miles outside, something like that. And those are the days where, as a 10-year-old, I'd say to Mum, I'm going to the game, and Mum would go, all right then. And I would get on a train on my own or with my mates, and we'd all take the train to Wrexham from Caergurley station, and we'd get off at the station and then go to football and then get back on the train. And then and I was like 10, 11 years old. You could do that in those days. You couldn't do it now, because they'd get social services on you and they'd be like, yeah, you can't do that to children. It's terrible. But, we were latchkey kids in those days. You could do whatever you wanted. So I remember those times. I remember those times where the town was properly celebrated and it was absolutely packed out. I mean, that old Cop End then, when it was properly packed to the rafters. I mean, as a little kid, you really struggled to be able to look over everybody's shoulders, because you'd be packed in like sardines. It was proper sweaty, smelling of smoke as well then, because everybody smoked, so it didn't matter. Proper. There are certain smells now which you don't get anymore. I'm sure if you go into a place where people are still smoking, I get that smell and I'm like, that takes me back. I remember that. And sweat, particularly as well, sweat. Everybody was sweating.
Unless I'm smelling weed, and I'll be like, hey.
Hey, here we go. Yeah, they didn't have that in 1977, otherwise I think you get arrested. But yeah. I remember the times, and the town was, it's very true that the town and the feel of the town and how it does well and how it does badly, and the general kind of ethos of the town matches the club. Because at that point, the town really felt like a place to be, and it was exciting, and it was on the up, and everything else. Even though it was the late 70s, which was grim. Everybody has this kind of rose-tinted spectacles thing of the 70s. It was grim. It was fairly grim. As was the 80s. Obviously, everybody looks at the 80s as Dayglow Pink and Duran Duran and all that kind of stuff. It was the 80s was. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much it was. What it was like in Oz in the 80s, but obviously in the UK.
Well, I was born in the UK in '85.
Well, there you go.
So I was living in the UK from obviously from baby till 1992. So, and a lot of my early childhood memories, other than the snow, would be just how smoggy and polluted, like Coventry and Birmingham in particular, were very much hazy all the time and cold and wet, and yeah, it was pretty drab. But I don't know. To me now, when I look back at that as a almost 40-year-old man, I'm like kind of like that sort of brings nostalgia to me when I see shows like like your Peaky Blinders, or there's a new show on TV called This Town, which is really really good, which I've been watching, and that centers a lot around the music industry within Birmingham and Coventry at the time, with the I
Good
think they call it
series.
two tone music or something.
Tone, yeah.
And it just
That's where
brings
that's
back.
where UB40 came from. That's where a lot of the two-tone bands at that time. There's a big movement in the north and the northwest, and obviously and particularly in the Midlands. It was a big, big, big thing because of the cultural influx at the time. Two-tone music was great, and yeah, that's a great series as well. But
Yeah,
you're right, it's funny, isn't it? You do have kind of memories, and it was quite grim, but
but that's all
would I
part of the character of the UK.
totally,
And that's what I bring it down to. Like, yes, we can look at it and be like, oh, that's just disgusting, or that thing. But to me, now that's the character, and that's what makes home home. Like that brings something out of the UK that makes it different. Yes, it's not the sprawling red dirt, kangaroos everywhere, and all that sort of, and wide open spaces where you have to go 45 minutes down the road just to see someone else. It's a lot different, and to me, that's what makes the UK the UK. But it actually brings up a very interesting thought, because I've seen online lately there's a little bit of backwards and forwards about which era is the best. Is this era that we're in now with Wrexham the best? Or was that 78, 79, 80 season the best? And I think it's too hard personally to actually compare the two, because there were two very different times. Back then, the championship wasn't the championship. It was, what was it, 14 teams in Division Two,
yeah.
and it wasn't like you didn't have all your sports sciences and all that sort of stuff in back in. You had your boys going down the pub afterwards and drinking up a storm, and all that. Like that, there wasn't this huge focus around performance. Whereas now it's just like it's this big just money pit, like the Premier League. It's the seventh toughest league in the whole of Europe, and to get there now, I think you can't really compare. Yes, they did more. Yes, they were in the second division, but I just think you can't really compare the two. It's just a new era. That's the way that's where I settle on it. I would love to say yes, this team's better or this team's better, but I can't settle on on one. But where do you stand with that?
They're both fruit, but one's an apple and one's a banana. They're two different types of fruit. Like you rightly said, football in the 70s. I mean, I can't remember whether it was the 70s or maybe it might be the 80s, but to get in then used to be 80p, 80 pence, to get in. You know what I mean? And you turn up at the turnstile, you put your 80p on and whatever, and you just go in, and they just pack them full. And like you rightly said, I've spoken to, as part of the pod, Dixie McNeil, who was one of the main guys who got us that promotion in 77, 78, because we bought him when we sold Billy Ashcroft, who was my favourite player in the 70s. When we sold him, we bought in Di Davis, who was a Welsh international at that time. He was the Welsh international goalkeeper, and we bought Dixie McNeil. And he banged in goals that season, absolutely banged in goals that got us promotion. He was one of the kind of key players. He's now the honorary president. He sits in front of us. I speak to him occasionally, and I asked him, funny enough, I said, who's the best? You guys or the current ones? And he said, you can't compare them. You can't. That's like comparing two different cars or two
Mm,
different, they're both things of the same thing, but they're totally different in a totally different environment. And like you say, these are now kind of honed athletes who are all about sports science and nutrition, and work full time, in the gym, and they have things strapped to their back which monitors everything they're doing and their heart rate and their vitals and blah 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 blah. Speaking to Billy Ashcroft, I used to do pre-season training by running up the sand dunes at Rail Beach on the North Wales coast. That was their kind of training. They just run up and down
And
sand dunes.
the winner would be who is less hungover on the day.
Exactly, yeah. They'd sit in the changing rooms. They'll be smoking fags, smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
kind of going. It's a completely different time. So you can't to say this team is better than this team or this player is better than this player. You can't do. What you just should do is just enjoy what's in front of you now and appreciate it. And this is the one thing I said to loads of people. Funny enough, I was speaking yesterday to some Americans. I said, just soak up these times now, these last few years, soak it up, because it will not last forever. We'd love it to last forever. This feel-good factor, you'd love it to last forever. Us winning, a huge percentage of our games, we'd love it to last forever. It won't. At some point, we will hit a wall. We'll hit a ceiling. How we get over that and how we deal with that is going to be the next challenge.
More money.
Well, yeah, but again, I've seen clubs who have had tons of money and it's not worked because they've not had the right people in place. This is the thing I have about Parky. There are lots of people who criticize Parky. They criticized Parky early in his career, Parky ball and all that kind of stuff, and dinosaur football, all this kind of stuff. This guy is on the cusp of doing something that no other manager ever has done, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't say, oh yeah, but he's had tons of money. Well, he hasn't had more money than Birmingham City.
It grinds my gears when I hear this, man. Like everyone's this man is literally doing something that it was deemed almost impossible to do, right? Because the jump from getting out of National League for a start, a really hard thing to do. The jump from League Two to League One is quite a decent jump, although. So I have heard some people say that this hasn't actually been a tough league this year, but I beg to differ. And then to now be doing it again and going to the championship with teams, and this is where this is actually going to lead me into a bit of a segue here. All right, because I know the Eat More Chips podcast tends to cover Welsh football as a whole, both the women's and the men's. All your Cymru leagues, as well as Wrexham news. I know Wrexham takes a fair bit of centre in that, but you do spend a lot of times with the rest of the Cymru leagues. Having a chance now to be in the same league as Cardiff and Swansea. I mean, this would blow my mind, and it makes me wish that I was Welsh, because then I could understand just how much that is going to, because that's North versus South, and you having to do it twice, and both of those South teams are big teams. Both of them have been in the Prem, so it's kind of like I'm so jealous, because I wish I could feel it. I wish I could understand what that's going to feel like next season if, when we're in the championship and having to think, oh, Swansea's coming to town or Cardiff's coming to town. And how do you think that's going to go? How do you think that's going to feel? Are you feeling it now?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I live in South Wales, so I'm a lot closer to Swansea and Cardiff than most Wrexham fans. I'm only what, 25 miles from Cardiff. I'm probably about 35 miles from Swansea, where I live. So I'm not far away from those two. They're big clubs now. They never used to be. Wrexham used to be the biggest club in Wales for a long time. Cardiff were down in the lower divisions. Swansea were down in the lower divisions. They would have occasional kind of forays up to the top division, but then they'd often bounce back down again. The rivalry between us is always there. Wrexham hold the record for the most Welsh Cup wins, Welsh Cup FA Cup wins, until the exiles, as they called them, Cardiff, Swansea, Newport, and Wrexham were basically told, yeah, you can't be in the Welsh FA Cup anymore because you're now in the English League, so you can't do that. Even though you're Welsh clubs and you're governed by the Welsh FA, you can't be in the Welsh FA Cup anymore. Don't ask me. You could do another. I could do another hour with you on that one, where I would just rant for an hour, because that is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. But anyway, Wrexham holds the record for the most FA Cup wins, more than Cardiff, more than Swansea, right? Yes, they're big clubs now. Yes, they've been in the Premiership. You know, and they were managed at one point really, really well. They're not anymore. They're managed really badly now, particularly Cardiff. And you saying there could be 3 clubs in the Championship, I wouldn't put money on that right now, because Cardiff are in big, big trouble. We could potentially swap places, because Cardiff are in that bottom. They were in the bottom four yesterday. I think they may have got a draw yesterday, and I think Derby might have lost. So that means that actually they might have just dropped out of the relegation zone. But it's going to be close. It's going to be close. They've been run really badly recently. Vincent Tan is another one of these unscrupulous businessmen who, you know, I don't know. He interferes too much. They change their manager on too regular a basis, so they're not kind of, you know, they're not the football people are not left to do the football things. You know, as soon as Cardiff hit a bit of a bumpy patch, he gets involved and sacks the manager, and then they're struggling to then find another manager, and they'll bring another manager in, and that manager then will have a team that they've not picked, so they'll try and change that team around to get players in and spend a fortune on players they want, and then 12 months later they'll be sacked. I mean, they've had a ridiculous turnover of managers, very similar to, you know, Coventry have done in the past, but now they've got Frank Lampard. They've managed to steady that ship really well, so that's great. Swansea in a bit of a different one, because they were managed for a while by an American conglomerate, which I think they still are, but there's been lacks of funds. Obviously, they had Luke Williams in recently and was sacked recently, that you didn't know about up to yesterday.
Blew my mind, man. Blew my mind. Because I quite like Luke Williams.
I was in the car and I was going, "No, Rousey, he's fired, mate. He's gone. He's gone. You've lost him. He's gone." And you're going, "No, I'm sure he's, I'm sure he's, I would have known about that. I'd have known." No, he's gone, mate. He's gone. Yeah. So they got. I mean,
I still can't believe I missed it, man.
His way of play, the way that he had Notts County play, was never going to fit for Swansea, because he was just Swansea. The players who were at Swansea before he became manager played in a completely different way. So he was trying to mould those players to do what he wanted them to do. And it's that classic thing. Bit of the problems that Parky had when he first started, trying to play his way, but not having the players to play his way properly. So having to fudge it a little bit to try and make it work. The problem is the pressure in the Championship is you don't have time. They don't give you time at that level. You know what I mean? Yeah. You either have success now or you're gone. You know, it's the one great thing about Parky coming up through the leagues from National League. He's had the time to slowly mould our play and mould how he wants the team to play, and not had massive pressure on, we need results now, we need this now, we need to do it now. Obviously, there are a selection of fans, you know, normally the ones who populate Red Passion, who are like, "He's rubbish, get him out, get rid of him, he's crap." You know, there is that, and there is every club has that section, but he's had that time to do that. At the Championship level, if you're coming in, you've got literally, you know, look at that guy who got sacked after 12 games. You can't do anything in 12 games.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, you gotta, when you go up the leagues, it becomes a game of inches. It's there's so little things in it. The goals dry up, so you see more of your 1-0s, you see more of your draws, because it's the teams are so similar with talent and strength and money and all that sort of stuff, that you see a lot of, like, you will get the occasional, you know, mass goal sort of thing, but it's just not going to be that, because teams are smart, and it becomes a game of inches. And just on that note, Cardiff City at the moment are actually in the relegation zone, but they're tied with Derby County, and they're 2 points behind Stoke City. So they're almost in safety, but it's extremely risky.
It's going to be very, very, very close. Very, very, very close. And the thing is that it won't take much for them to get out of it, but also it won't take much for them to get dragged back in. And with the pressure, because obviously I listen to Radio Wales a lot, and Radio Wales, obviously, they covered Wrexham more than they used to. I feel sorry. I say this very, very carefully. I feel sorry a little bit for Newport, because they're absolutely the team at the moment that nobody in Wales cares about, apart from unless you live in Newport. I have no problem with that. But there you go. But they will obviously, because it's Cardiff is the capital, it's very Cardiff-centric Radio Wales. So they're pouring a lot of information at the moment on Cardiff and the problems that they've got there, and the fact they've just changed their manager again, and the fact that Vincent Tan, blah 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 blah. They're in serious trouble, and I think if the danger is that if they go down to League One, Vincent Tan is already not happy with the amount of money he's having to put in. I mean, they made a £12 million loss in those figures that have just been released. And that's something like the third or fourth year in a row they've lost over £10 million that he's putting in. I mean, he wasn't a very sympathetic guy. I mean, this is a guy who tried to change the club badge without consulting with the fans because he wanted the Asian dragon in there, and he wanted to change the colour of the kit from blue, which is Cardiff's traditional colour, to red. Obviously, Cardiff don't want to play in red.
Never. What an idiot! You don't do that to Welsh teams. Well,
no.
There's one thing I know, and as much about this England and Wales divide, Welsh teams are so proud. Their fans are so proud. It's everything to them, and you don't do that to them. It's one of the reasons why the Welsh teams are feared. They cause problems because of the fan bases behind them and the pride that Welsh people have in Wales, and it's such a good thing. It really is, and it does actually reverberate around the world. And I can see it's clear as day.
Put it this way, if Ryan and Rob suddenly went, okay, we're going to change the badge, the Wrexham badge, and we're going to put the American flag on it, and we're going to do whatever, and try and bulldoze that without talking to the fans first. How do you think the fans would react?
They would want him. They would want him gone.
Exactly.
They'd be like, "No, get out. You're not owners of our club anymore."
That's exactly what happened to Vincent Tan. Vincent Tan basically tried to bulldoze that through and change the colour of the kit. And the Cardiff fans just went no, and ever since then he's lost the fans for a while. Yes, they got up to that Premiership for that one season and got absolutely battered. And since then they've struggled keeping the Championship. So it's possible, in a long way around, what we're talking about, it's possible we could swap places, and it could only be Wrexham Swansea who will be in the Championship, and Cardiff could be down in League One. If we're really unlucky, then Cardiff will join us. If we don't manage to get out of League One, whatever happens, we're going to be probably with another Welsh team or two Welsh teams. And for me, that does absolutely whet my appetite because, that's proper historical for us. The major matches for us, apart from your Chesters, which I miss those. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm delighted to see Chester, basically being a glorified pub
punching
team.
Bag.
That's great. But I did miss the derbies because they were, if anybody has witnessed a Wrexham match in atmosphere, you can times that by 1,000 when Chester in town and we're playing Chester.
I would recommend to our listeners and viewers out there, do a YouTube search for Bootlegger versus Chester, some of the best, and you'll see what it's all about, and you'll see how vile and how just full on it is. It is crazy. I mean, it's almost like Rangers versus Celtic, isn't it? It's old firm.
And Carl in the day when he used to be, full on, blowing the trumpet for Wrexham. Sorry, Bootlegger. His real name's Carl. Bootlegger, when he used to do that. He was, just go and look those up on YouTube and you could see the vitriol there used to be between Wrexham. And it still is, even though there is a much smaller fan base now at Cardiff, and the Wrexham fan base now is much more family orientated, and we are just enjoying our success and our time in the sun. It's still there. It's still niggling. It's still like a piece of our past that we like to refer to. So you get those kind of the derbies, you get the Tranmere, you get Shrewsbury Town, which we've witnessed that recently, and that absolutely the Shrewsbury away game. The last time I really had to fear for my life at a football match was when we played Shrewsbury at the Gay Meadow, which it used to be, which is in the centre of town, next to the river. And I remember after the last match at the Gay Meadow, before they were going to move to that out-of-town shopping centre, boring ground that they've currently got, we beat them. And I had to run to the station because I was chased by a number of fairly unhappy Shrewsbury fans with a group of others. But we had to run to the station, jump on the train because basically they were going to lynch us.
we're going to go to a short break, and I think we should actually spend a bit of time discussing football culture and football rivalries because this has actually turned out to be very interesting. And I really like this. So let's go to a short break. Enjoy your Ned's Bet ads, whatever it is that you're listening to, or get fed. And we'll come back after this, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion about this. It's going to be great. So be sure to stick around. We'll see you after this. All right, so we are back. We are talking about football rivalries and football culture in the UK, in particular in Wales, and obviously with the Chester thing that we were just talking about. But funnily enough, I just had a thought just before, and it's one of the things about the differences between the 78 era and what it is now. I was actually watching a very old game, and one of my favorite things to do is go back and look at these old games. And I was watching a game against it was Coventry versus Derby County in 1982, and the pitch was mud. You don't see that nowadays because you're not allowed to have that because of injury worries and all that sort of stuff. But back in those days, you're playing in mud, sleet, like just it is insane. And you don't see that these days. I mean, at what point did that get lost?
I think when the Premiership came in, I think when the Premiership came in '92, then everybody's bars got raised because obviously they went, okay, well, we're going to now start to improve club facilities. I mean, you know, you never used to get club hospitality. You know, when you went away to you never a club hospitality was they provide you with a fairly warm cup of bovril and maybe a pie if you're lucky, and that's it. There was no kind of tables where you'd have a three-course meal and a player from the club would come over and talk and about blah blah, and you get a program, and you never had that unless you were proper posh, as in a club director or a special guest. You certainly couldn't buy that, you know.
Mm.
But it was a different time because it was all about you go on you go as a group, you go either you all pile into a minibus or of somebody's van or somebody's car and you drive to the thing, or you go on the football trains because they don't really do football trains anymore. But in the olden days, they used to have dedicated football trains in the UK where basically they were there for was to take fans from one place to another place to do the game and then bring them back again so the police could try and control them. They'd all try and put them on one train, and that was the football trains. They were more prevalent, really, obviously, around the London area because you've got so many clubs around there. But we still used to do football trains, and particularly with the big rivalries. I mean, as it would be today, I would imagine if we met Chester today, it would still be a bubble match, as in all the fans would be corralled onto buses in one place. You would not be allowed to travel to the ground on your own. You would be taken by police up to you go as a group up to the edge of the city where you were playing. The police would meet you. They would escort you into one place near the ground. You would all come off the bus. You would all go into the away end. You wouldn't be allowed to go into pubs. You wouldn't be allowed to go in, mill around. You'd be shepherded from the buses into the away end. You would be in the away end. You would do your thing. At the end of the game, you'd often be held. So the game would finish and all the home fans would get allowed to go, but you'd be held in for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it may be. Then you'd all be corralled back to the buses, and the police would then escort you away from the ground to a certain area, probably 10 miles away, and then the police would release the buses and the buses would go home. Those bubble matches are very rare now. Rangers Celtic is probably one that's definitely there. I would say my son is just about to appear in the background, by the way. He might be in a minute because I've seen him wandering around. So yeah, they'd have those kind of bubble matches. Even Man City or Liverpool Everton don't really have those bubble matches anymore that they used to.
Yeah,
So
because
there was
there used to be a time when you would. I remember you'd get off the train, and you would be led through either your front line, or this is where like front lines and that firms came from. You'd be led through because the opposing team's front lines would be waiting for you and to rile you up. They would throw stuff at you. Sometimes fights would break out. So often you would be led by the front line, so all your families and things like that were going to the game could get to the game safely, and the guys on the front line were the ones that were having it out, having a bit of a scrap with whether they're thrown some places you don't get that, but I think that this is the hooligan culture, and this is where it was born out of.
I mean, football in the late 70s and a lot of the 80s definitely had a dark time. It really was a dark time because there was the hooliganism at that point was prevalent. Families didn't really go to football games then because parents wouldn't take their kids. Dads would go, mums might go, but kids wouldn't really. I mean, they'd go on their own, but kids would normally be early pre-teens and whatever. But it was a very dark time, and you did get the feeling. I mean, I remember going to see Wrexham versus Swansea at the old Vetch Field, so not Swansea.com as it is now, but the old Vetch Field, which is much older ground, and the away end then used to be inside a cage. The away end was caged, the front and the sides, and you were in a cage because that was the only way that they could keep the away fans in, and keep the home fans from getting to the away fans. That's how bad it used to be. You literally were on tenterhooks, and for a time, the football almost took a back seat. And it was more about, not for me, because there were times in the 80s where I stopped going to football for that very reason. But for a number of people, for them, it was all about, right, where can we have a bust up? We'd arrange to meet fans and we'd have a fight. People would get hurt. And the football stopped to be important. And they lost the reason actually why we're supposed to be gathering together in the first place. You didn't go to, when I go to away days now, I go to experience the away day. I have a wander around the town first. I go and have a breakfast or a fish and chips. I go and speak to some locals. I, visit some bits and pieces. That for me is part of it. In those days, it wasn't. It was about, we go there, we get absolutely pie-eyed on alcohol, and we have a fight. And the football was secondary, and that was the bad times. That was the reason why. It's not fully gone away. It's still there in a very small pockets. I mean, I have to be honest. The one place I've never gone because I've been too scared is Millwall. And if we get promoted next season, there's a high
Good
chance we're
old
going to go
Green Street.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's still there. There's still remnants of it in the background, but it's a lot better than it used to be. That's for sure. And Wrexham had its element as well. The Wrexham front line used to be, there was a band of people who you as fans, you knew you didn't mess with them because they were there, for a certain reason. They were almost like the enforcers of the Wrexham fans at that point, where they make sure that Wrexham, the how can I put it, the Wrexham brand was. We weren't going to be taking the mickey out of, or nobody's going to take advantage of us from a point of view of that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not painting this in as proud in any way, shape, or form, because I wasn't. And as I say,
No, I think this is important because this is the birthplace of rivalries. Of your birthplace of your Chester Wrexham rivalry, or your birthplace of your Celtic Rangers rivalry. Like, this is where it's come from. Like, it's multi-generational, and yes, the the government and the governing bodies and the police have done their best to stamp it out, and in turn, what that's done is just fuel the matches to make the matches more the focus now, and everyone lets it play out on the field. Yes, you still get, like you said, your little contingencies of fans that are still very firm orientated, but to me, I mean, that's where a lot of these rivalries were born from, was from that very era, and
but the thing
we're
is,
seeing that today.
we have banter. There is banter. Okay, social media tries to. Some people try to turn that banter into something more vicious and more, more nasty. And the important thing is not to let that win, because that's not, there's nothing wrong with banter. There's nothing wrong with opposing fans having a bit of a nip at each other, because that's part of it. It's when it starts to get nasty, when messages get sent to James McLean's wife saying, "Oh, why was your husband killed in the car crash?" Who on earth, in their right mind, thinks that is a good thing to do or say, irrespective of whether it's football or not? They're human beings at the end of the day, right? So why on earth would you be wishing that, and certainly wishing it by talking to his wife and his kids about it? I mean, there is something for me is not right. It's not right there, you know. So it's important that the banter is still there because that's part of it. Part of the football culture. That banter is a massive part of it. And absolutely, you know, where I sit, I'm probably about 15 feet away from the away end at Wrexham. So when the away end, and obviously those fans, as away fans do, they love the banter because they're a smaller number, so they've got to make themselves heard because that's part of it, and they do most of the time. I mean, Burton yesterday, really good. You know, they weren't the best that I've ever heard. The problem is it's a balancing act. So we had Rotherham a few weeks ago. They were nasty. They were not nice at all.
But Burton Albion's emblem, their logo, is a fat guy playing football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, who thought that was a good idea? But I get exactly what you mean because when I released the Stockport reaction video the other week, and I was reacting to one of the Stockport podcasts, and it got picked up, and it just gained so much traction, and the amount of abuse I got, and I welcomed it because I even said in the video, look, I can take it. You want to give it to me, give it to me, and have a bit of fun. And I was having a bit of backwards and forwards in the YouTube comments and the private messages, and then the Scarf Bagara War, their podcast, they obviously picked up that I did this and they spoke about it on their podcast. So I just sent them a quick little message and saying, hey, look, this is all just a bit of fun. No hard feelings. It's just content. And I linked their video in my description. And they were really, really nice about it. Once I approached them with a bit of respect, they understood. And that I think
That
is really quite touching.
That's exactly it. That's what That the thing is, you see, is that with social media, banter has become more magnified. You know, before social media, banter used to be away fans, home fans chanting at each other, saying, "Where were you when we were shit? Oh, you must be shit. We're winning at home. We're winning away." All those kind of chants that you hear now. That was the only banter that you used to have. That banter then morphed into stuff that would happen outside the ground, but sensible people who were just interested in football wouldn't get involved in that bit. It was a minority of people who basically were just there for it was again, you could get into socio-political politics at the time, the 80s. You had lots of young people who were very discontented because there were no jobs and blah 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 blah, and this was their outlet because during the week then they would have to put up with all the rubbish that whatever, and then the weekends they could go nuts and knock seven bells of crap out of each other. There are a number of things. If you speak to a number of psychologists at the time, or historical psychologists, that's what they'll tell you. Anybody who just loves football, enjoys football, would not get involved in that bit, and I didn't, and all my friends didn't. None of my friends were hooligans, for want of a better word, from that point of view. We were there to go and watch the football. You would have that banter with the opposing fans. It could get quite heated, of course it could. Particularly if there are certain fans and they'd say certain things. But at the end of the game, often you meet each other in the pub. I mean, maybe not in the 80s because that wouldn't happen. But later in the 90s, it was better. In the 90s, it was better. You meet each other in the pub afterwards, and you go, "Oh, good game, well done. Oh, yeah, you did really well, well done. Do you fancy a pint? Oh, yeah, thanks very much." I was bought pints loads of times by drinks loads of times by opposing fans in the pub afterwards because what you do in the banter zone is the banter zone, and that's fine, and you accept that, and you can almost let your hair down and understand that what you say, it doesn't really have consequences because it's not meant. It is just part of the game day experience. When that whistle blows and you walk away, you have a moan about whether you've done badly, or you congratulate yourself when you've done good, and often you'll talk to other fans, and then it's done until the next time you meet, and then the banter strikes up again. That's what it should be. In the bad old days of the late 70s and 80s, it spilled over into extreme violence. Sensible people, and I'm going to use that word because I can't understand it. Obviously, for the people who did that at the time, they saw it as part of their life. But the people who just were loving football, they would accept. You know what? That's not for me. I'm just going to do the banter bit and enjoy the football, and that's what I did. And that was part of it. Thankfully, it's a lot better now. It's a lot more family orientated. I mean, some people say, "Oh, it's a bit too clean now. Football's a bit too plastic. It's a bit too prawn sandwiches and all that kind of stuff." It might be at the Premier League, maybe, but at the lower leagues, you've witnessed it. I've witnessed it. You can still have the gritty bits, the nasty bits. There are some grounds that we've been to in the past, 15, 16, 17 years, which you're kind of going, yeah, they're proper, proper flea pit kind of style of grounds, but some people saying football's lost its character. Yes, I think it probably has. But is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's, the fan experience is better, certainly better. You can get more different types of food now. You get better drinks. You have there's less kind of fear or tension in the ground or getting to the ground. It used to be the days where you couldn't walk, if you're going away somewhere, you couldn't walk around the away end's town in your shirt because you get targeted. Now I can. I walk around wherever, and I'm wearing, either a shirt or a pullover. I'll wear my cap and whatever, no problem at all. Nobody will say a thing. So the experience for a fan has got better. I think the quality and the level of football has got better, definitely, because obviously, like you say, as they become sports science more, the football is up to whatever. I'm not a fan of the Premiership, I have to be honest, because I think that's too far. I think now that's, the money aspect of that is just absolutely ridiculous. But would I want to get us to Championship? Absolutely, I want us to be in the Championship, but I'd be quite happy to stay there for as long as we need to be. It's absolutely fine.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to it myself as well. So, but we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to discuss Eat More Chips, and we are going to. I want to sort of drill down into the north-south divide. Let's have a bit of fun with that, eh? But I will be doing it medicated. It's High Times with Rousey coming up. Let's go to a quick break and then come back. Let's go. Oh yeah, nah, this is Rousey's Wrexham Roundup. She'll be right, mate. And we are back. I am joined here with Welsh Techie from Eat More Chips. And this is High Times with Rousey. This is my favourite segment of the day because I get to basically say whatever comes to my mind and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. But 100 episodes, Eat More Chips. That must have been pretty sweet to get to, right?
It's a miracle, to be brutally honest with you. I mean, the original idea, but the flag's been going since 2000 well, actually, it was going to the 90s because when we were in college, Daz and I were in college. We used to say, eat more chips, don't let salad win, because it was all about having chips and then
the greasy chips with the curry.
Oh, proper chip butty, yeah, with all the sauce and everything. Oh yeah, absolutely slathered in tomato sauce and gravy, and you can't beat it. You can't beat it. And particularly, I guarantee you, after you've had a few tokes on that, you're going to be wanting to go off and get some munchies, guaranteed on that. So,
do they still do chips in newspaper, or did they stop that?
No, not really. I mean, it's very rare you would find a chip shop now that does newspaper, and it's the one thing when the
ink used to make the chips taste better.
Oh, definitely, yeah. There used to be a paper in Liverpool called the Liverpool Echo that was only printed on a Saturday, and it was pink. The paper was pink. Right, and it used to have it was a one that was put out with the football results in, and the big memory thing for me was my granddad used to come home from the Wrexham match and he would always bring home chips wrapped up in pink newspaper, because that's what they would wrap it up in a pink newspaper from the week before, and that's the thing to this day. Whenever I see pink newspaper, I get absolutely taken back to the time when Grandad used to bring home a bag of chips. So we used to have, Daz and I used to have the thing of eat more chips, don't like salad win in college and whatever. And he was like, "Yeah, we're not interested in salad. Don't want to do that from that point of view." And then we decided to make a flag up of it, Daz and I, from Wales was on tour. So we took it. The first time it ever made its debut was versus Italy at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. There were 72,000 people, and we beat Italy on that 2-1, and it got shown in the television coverage when we opened our podcast. Ian Gwyn Hughes doing that commentary. That's from that very commentary back then. So we thought, well, this must be a lucky charm. So we'll just keep taking it to loads of football grounds. And we've taken it everywhere. We've taken it to Moscow when we played Russia. We actually had it in Moscow. Which is, there's that picture of us outside St Basil's Cathedral with it. We've taken it to Germany, we've taken it to Belgium, we've taken it to the Norse countries, to France, to Spain, to Malta, to
Will you
Italy.
be taking it to Australia in July?
I'd love to go, but I don't think I'm going to make it.
It's an expensive trip.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my, because part of my work, I do a number of jobs for Australian and New Zealand companies. So I'm trying to get my work to say, if I need to go out, can I go out around about that time? Would that be? I don't think. Yeah. But
come to think of it, I'm just on a train of thought here that you would never see page 3 in chip rap.
Oh no.
No, they would never. I would never put page 3 in
garage walls. They get on garage walls or teenage boys' walls. They take that bit out and they would get stamped up. For the garage, you go to the garage to get your car done. They would just be full of them on calendars.
But I'm just gonna, for our listeners, page 3, all right, is an experience. We look at our Sunday Times, our newspapers and all that sort of stuff, and it's all full of political shit and all that sort of stuff. But the UK like to do things a little bit differently, and they put on page 3 just nude women. Do they still do it?
Do you know what? I don't know, because I don't buy the red tops anymore. Basically, there's a certain type of paper that you can have page 3 in it, and they weren't fully naked, by the way. They were just topless. They didn't. It was
boobs. It was glorious.
It was boobs. I'm going to say no, because I would imagine that the way that the society is now, I can imagine that people would probably go, that's a bit exploitative, and we probably shouldn't be doing that. I would imagine. So I'm going to say no, but I haven't bought a red top in 15 years, so I couldn't tell you, to be brutally honest with you.
There's lots of lonely granddads on a Sunday opening their papers. on their recliner.
Well, there was no internet then, remember? So you had that, and you had the lingerie section of the catalogue that your mum had, and that was it. Those were your two. That's where you had, to actually have some kind of scut mag. You didn't have them in those days, really. Not at my age, anyway. Not at that point, unless you were very, very lucky. So yeah.
Oh, no way. I remember it. Page 3, what a thing. That needs to come. Bring back page 3 #.
Yeah, I don't think so, mate. I'm afraid. I don't think nowadays. I don't think that will happen, to be brutally honest with you. But there you go.
We've got so off topic.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
This is the danger of this section, and
totally, yeah. You can go.
I make sure I've got all of my guests' permission before I actually go ahead and do this one, because it's not everyone's cup of tea. But Welsh Techie, the brave one here.
It's fine. But like you said, trying to get back. So we had the flag. We took the flag to loads of places, and then obviously we were still. Daz doesn't really follow Wrexham, but he sort of does, because he follows Welsh football. He's originally from Aberystwyth. But he's a Liverpool fan, so he follows more Liverpool and Aberystwyth. But he says, and if you ask him, he'll tell you the first shirt he ever owned when he was a kid, his man bought him a Wrexham shirt. So that's the first shirt he ever owned when he was young. So he has an affinity for Wrexham, and he has a kind of a secret love for Wrexham that he won't admit to, but you know it. I mean, as I say, when I went with him to Exeter the other week, he came with me and he thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, he was helped by about 4 or 5 Guinnesses. But he properly enjoyed it, which was great. But he, we kind of, me and Jamie obviously still followed Wrexham through the bad bits and whatever. And I was working abroad then. My brother would kind of try and follow them where he could and whatever. And then when Wrexham started to, in the Dean Keats, the last sort of Dean Keats era, where we're really starting to struggle a little bit, we realised that we need to start supporting the club a bit more. So my brother and I started supporting more. We started going to more matches and getting back more. We follow them from a distance, but now we'd follow them a lot closer. At the same time, I was still going to Wales games with Daz, and we still go to Ireland. We had a great session once in Dublin. Oh boy, that was a hell of a weekend. And at that point, then, when Wrexham were playing, the podcast was starting to kick in. Obviously, Fearless was starting to kick in. Rob Ryan Red was starting to kick in. Obviously, Mark Griffiths we'd listened to through his commentaries, and obviously he would have his weekly kind of bits and pieces. And my brother said to me once when we were just sitting in having a drink, he said, we should do a podcast. And I went, really? What have we got to say? He said, we got loads to say. You and me argue like cat and dog all the time. Why don't we actually record that and whatever? And I said, said, yeah, but I don't know what we can contribute that, you know, what would the brand be and all this kind of stuff. Because I come from a theatre background. My brother doesn't. He comes from cars and bikes and stuff like that, you know, whatever. And that's when I had the thought. I said, well, if we incorporated the flag, the Eat More Chips, then we've got an identity that we could, because there are a number of Welsh fans who recognise the flag. There's a brilliant picture during COVID, when behind closed doors, of when the Welsh team were training. And what happened is the FAW invited a number of flags in and said, give us your flag. We will put them up on the barriers of the training ground for the players to see, so they know that although you can't support them in person because you can't go, they'll know you're there. So we got the Eat More Chips flag put up with all the other flags. There's a brilliant picture of Gareth Bale walking past the Eat More Chips flag, pointing at it, laughing his head off. Which, you know, it's just brilliant. So it's kind of there are people in Wales and supporters in Wales who know the flag. So I thought, well, it's good if we can tie that to that and put the two together. Then actually we would have a brand identity that then people could relate to, and maybe they'll want to listen to our nonsense. And it sort of came from there, really, where I sort of talked Daz into it. He was a bit reluctant, going, I don't really want to do it. I think now he's a bit more. He enjoys it more, I think, because the three of us get together once a week. Like, it's like we go to the pub once a week and we basically sit there and just take the piss out of each other, which is great, you know. And we talk a little bit of football, and it's nice that we get to express stuff and our feelings and blah 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 blah, which is fantastic. So we have that now. Getting to 100 is incredible, because it doesn't seem like 2 years since we started it. It literally seems like, you know, we started it yesterday. So to get to 100 episodes is absolutely incredible. But we seem to, I mean, I can only speak for myself, we seem to enjoy it just as much as we did when we did episode 1. In fact, if anything, we enjoy it more because we're more relaxed. You know, we're not kind of uptight about it. And
it evolves, doesn't it? Like the whole dynamic, like feeding off. Like, I look at some of my earlier videos with Adrian and stuff, and you're just like, my gosh, like the difference, because you get so much more comfortable, you know, talking into a camera over time. It's just one of those skills that you're not just automatically going to have.
It's not just that. It's not the technical bit of it and the whole whatever, because the three of us get to touch base. I mean, I've had more contact with my brother over the last 2 years than I probably have over the previous 30, because I was working away and we were living in separate places. You know, it's one of those things, you know, it is, families live apart. You touch base with each other rarely, but normally it's Christmases and birthdays or weddings or funerals, and that's really the only time that you will properly touch base. I now speak to my brother now every week, guaranteed. Sometimes more than once if we go in matches as well. You know, we have had more contact than we've ever had. Same with Daz, you know, because I was working away a lot, and Daz, you know, he also works in theatre as well, so he can be on tour or he can be doing whatever. We wouldn't touch base apart from maybe when we go to Wales games. Well, now again, we touch base at least once a week, and we talk to each other. And the fact that Daz said, "Oh, I fancy coming to Bristol Rovers. I fancy coming to Exeter." Okay, come on then, let's go. So we would go and we'd spend the day together, which is great. So again, you get that social aspect, and then add to that, I get to meet people like yourself and loads of other people from around the world. As I say, I was speaking for an hour to 2 Americans yesterday at the Burton match. Now, I was supposed to do other stuff. I was supposed to meet people. I went, you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to talk to you guys, because listening to them, they were massively. They were so pleased to be in Wrexham. They were so delighted to be part of the Wrexham family. They were so excited. They were like kids at Christmas. They were properly like, I can't believe I'm here. You know, this is. The documentary doesn't. This is what he said to me. Dave said to me, the documentary doesn't do it justice, because how the documentary paints it is only a small sliver of actually what it's like. It is overwhelming. The generosity, the love, the great wishes, the banter, the laughter, he said it's just an overwhelming feeling of emotions that you just don't experience through when you're watching the matches or when you're watching the documentary. And I listen to that and I go, yeah, that's he's part of my family now. He's part of my hometown, and it gives me an incredibly warm feeling. And that's what the podcast really brings, is I get to connect with so many other people, and they give me, they tell me what they're thinking and how they're feeling and how they see Wrexham. Because it's like anything, if you're involved with something for a long period of time, I've been a Wrexham fan now for 50 years. When you've been a fan of something for that long, you have a tendency sometimes to take it for granted. And I certainly took it for granted before we were nearly out of business and before we nearly when we were bounced to the non-league, I definitely took it for granted up to that point, because I thought, there's no way the club will go under. It's been established too long, it'll never happen. And it nearly did. And that was a strong lesson for me, is to not take anything like that for granted, not think that something's going to go forever just because it's established. It doesn't. You have to work at it. You've got to make sure that you support it. It's like a plant. You've got to nurture it. You've got to feed it. You've got to help it grow. You can't just take it for granted. It's going to sit there forever and it's going to be alive forever. And that's the beauty of when I hear people like yourself, Josh, like I say, these two guys who I spoke to yesterday, the love they have for the club, and therefore the love they have for Wrexham and the people and everything else, just gives me like a massive warm feeling where I think, I now see something. They've reintroduced me to something that I'd forgotten. The love of my town, the love of my club, the love of the people that I grew up with. I now can see that again. They reintroduced that to you, and there is no money in the world that you could pay that you could pay for to get that feeling back again. To actually have a love for something that much, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
You just speaking music to my ears. That is, and it's the same reason. It's the same way I feel about it too. Because you do get it opens up your world to this whole, other than it being a whole life encompassing thing pretty much, and it becomes about, okay, where's my content, what am I going to talk about, other than that, and the harder aspect of it, the reward is it opens up these doors, it opens up these avenues to people around the world. Excuse me. Opens up all these avenues, and it's amazing because you make good friendships. Like, I'm really good friends with Josh. The Rouseys Rowdy Army I put a lot of time into as well, because they're from all over the world themselves, and I think to make it to we didn't quite make it to 100 episodes. I got to start all over again. But for you guys to make it to 100 episodes and to choose to actually have guests on, you had a Canadian guest in the Red Horde, you had local pundit who's obviously from the Los Angeles region, then you had me over the other side of the world. It just goes to show that this community that opens up to content creators for Wrexham, and for sport in general as well, and I guess it goes across all codes, just it brings you that connection, and that's what I really, really love about doing this. And
you can have two tier now, because I don't know, obviously we've had this week where possibly it looks like Wrexham may be coming to the Oz next pre-season. I don't know whether you'll get to go to that, so you will get then suddenly the Wrexham circus turning up in Oz. What is that going to be like for you? That's going to be mind-blowing, I would imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, if they weren't playing the Melbourne Victory, but anyway.
It might not. As you said yesterday, I can't see them just playing one team, going all that way and just playing one side.
Yeah.
Hope they would do like they did in
yeah.
Canada.
Well, we get Premier League teams coming down here in the off season all the time, so I imagine that it's going to incorporate some of the Premier League teams as well. We do something here called the Winter of Football. Last year we had Real Madrid and Barcelona in town, and that was amazing. But Messi wasn't there, which but no, it's I think it's great, because I think, if I'm being completely honest, from a different perspective, a lot of attention gets paid to the Americans. Because that's where 52% of the club's income comes from. A lot of it, a lot of attention gets paid to that, and not the fact that, Wrexham has fans in Australia or Africa or, all over the world. There are people that love Wrexham just as much. So you do sort of see that aspect of it, but I think I
there is,
love the Americans. They're great.
in Oz, there is a New South Wales. There is a Cardiff. You know,
Yes.
those places exist for a reason.
And
You know,
and I found out the other day in Wales that there's a Welsh pool in Wales.
there is.
And
Yeah,
I
there
used to work in Welsh pool, so yay me.
There you go. The thing is, so you'll have that, right? You'll have the Wrexham Circus, which will come to Oz, and hopefully you get to experience that bit. And that's interesting because what you'll find then is there'll be people like yourself who love the town, who will follow the town. Plus, you'll get all the expats because there's a lot of expats who are Wrexham supporters. They will all come out to celebrate and join together, and they will tell you their tales of what life was like before they emigrated to Australia and now their life in Australia. But then you're going to experience in November actually coming to Wrexham and experience that. And that's the bit for me which I'm most excited about for you. I really am hoping that we can get promoted and then you get to experience Wrexham Coventry for you would be...
That'd be a dream. It would be a dream.
I am crossing all my fingers and toes that when the scheduling comes, it fits with either at the Rico, so away, or even better, Coventry Wrexham at the Kairos. You there, so you're like, well, I'm like a pig in shit because for me, I don't give a monkeys who wins. I'm just here for both because this is great for me.
Well, I've never actually seen other than on TV. I've never seen Coventry's new arena, the CBS arena, because it's that's well and truly new. I was Highfield Road.
I was there, mate. I was there for when we did it in the FA Cup. I was there. Oh, that was incredible.
It would have been so good.
One of my best away days for a long time.
And Coventry fans can sing too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were stunned to silence to begin with because they were like, what? This is a lower league side. Why are we struggling? And then you could see that they're kind of, this is just part of our current season. But then as they started to get back into gear and they were starting to get the goals back and we were hanging on more, then the noise was lifting and they were properly getting into it and whatever. I'm just delighted for them that they've got somebody like Lampard now in charge who's, as you said before, steadied the boat now. There's a high possibility they might get into the playoffs, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. For me personally, I'd like them to stay in the Championship if we go to the Championship, because again, playing Coventry for me, getting Coventry to the Stoke Kairos, but there are so many teams when I think about that. There's not just them. There's, as I say, Millwall. I've never been to Millwall. I'd like Green Street, all that kind of stuff. I'd love to go do that. I'm QPR. QPR, a proper old club. Like QPR, Ipswich, Norwich. The Tractor Boys. Getting down to see those. It's such a long time since we played Ipswich and Norwich, and in those days, kind of, the Ipswich when I was growing up were like one of the big teams. They were one of the big sides, so they were, it'd be great to see them. Just sides like that where you're thinking, yeah, Reading and Hayes and Dover, you were lovely, but goodbye, and let's hope we never meet again unless it's inside the FA Cup or something, because this is where from a spiritual point of view, Wrexham, I think, should be. This is where we should be. We should be competing with this kind of side and knocking boots with these guys, doing that. That's what we should be doing, because that's what the town, because the size of the town and the history of the club and everything else, that's what it deserves. It deserves to be on that stage, not on a non-league stage where we were always like a big fish in a very small pond. We just needed that kickstart to get us out, which obviously, and we were doing it. We were getting there. There were times during that 15 years we were close. Obviously Fleetwood doing their thing. They had the money then, and they had what's his name, the guy who played for Leicester, whose name I can't stand. Him. They had him. They had him, and he was banging in goals for fun. Obviously the amount of times that we'd get to the playoffs, and the Newport playoff was so. I was there, and that was so upsetting and so painful because I honestly thought we'd turn them over. We turned Newport over on that time. It was soul destroying because of all the teams to basically get to the league at our expense. Of Newport was an absolute no for me because I worked I worked in that area for a long time. I had a lot of friends who were from there, and they would constantly say to me, "Oh yeah, little Wrexham. No, we beat you. Never mind."
Well, we can say cheerio to them now, can't we?
Well, exactly. It's absolutely fine. It's like goodbye and enjoy League Two, or if you're really unlucky, then back to the National League for you. But this is where Wrexham should be. We should be with, even if we stay at League One. Bolton Wanderers. Your Charlton Athletic. Your Birmingham City's been great. I've always been a fan of the Blues because I don't remember till Trevor Francis was the first £1 million footballer in British football history. He was the first one back in, I'm going to say 78, but I know there are going to be Blues fans screaming at me now going, no, it wasn't. But I had a pair of his football boots because you could buy Trevor Francis football boots, which basically had his signature on them. And the first pair of football boots I had was a pair of Trevor Francis football boots. And because of that, I was actually I liked Birmingham City for two reasons. That, and also the comedian Jasper Carrott was a big blues fan, and he used to refer to the Birmingham City within his set. So I always had a soft spot for Birmingham City. So to be able to be, in the same league as Birmingham City is great. But even if we don't go up, the sides that we've got against, this is where we should be. This is where we should always have been. If it wasn't for the fact that, one or two or three unscrupulous people decided to try and take advantage of a community and didn't see actually that we are stronger and more resilient than they could possibly imagine, and could work out their dirty, dastardly plans and fox that, obviously we would be now out of existence, or, to have a team like Bury go the way that they have, it's just been awful, because it's just dreadful, because they have got such a rich history within British football, and basically because of mismanagement now they are fighting their way back through the pyramids as a completely new club again, all because of, again, one or two or three individuals who feel that they can take advantage of something or manipulate something, or think that they are bigger than they are, but not realize actually you are carrying the hopes and dreams of thousands and thousands and thousands of people and many generations. You can't just buy or sell that and think, oh, that's all right, that's fine, and it not have consequences. And I'm so delighted that I read now about our illustrious ex-chairman and what's happened to them, hiding away in their bolt holes, trying desperately to avoid the authorities because of possible charges of money problems or whatever it is. I'm delighted. I am absolutely delighted. I hope you get your comeuppance wherever you are. You are never ever going to be welcome in any circle that I'm involved in, because you deserve everything you get for the awful, terrible things you thought you could do to the Wrexham family. Now, thankfully, we're on a much firmer footing with people who I feel have the town's best interests in heart. You only have to watch Ryan yesterday. When you look back, he is properly engaging in it. And I don't know whether you saw Michael Williamson, the chairman. Sorry, the CEO, he put on his Instagram yesterday, he was behind Ryan during the game, and Ryan's got Rob on his phone and he's FaceTiming Rob and he's doing this and going, well, and you can see Rob's face on the phone. He's like, what? Obviously trying to watch the match because Rob can't actually be there himself. This is two chairmen who were getting so excited, like giddy, like kids, like we were kids back in the 70s and the 80s when we used to go to games. These are multi-million-pound, actors and producers and content creators, but they're like kids. They're so excited, and that's what you want. You want chairmen who are part of your club and part of the journey and the family, not people who are just out there to make a quick buck by taking advantage of what they consider to be a group of people. Mr. Hamilton.
I'll give you a little scoop, because we were talking earlier about me getting the prediction of Wrexham finishing second, right? Which looks like it's what's going to happen. But I honestly think in 2 seasons' time, 3 at the outside, Wrexham will go up again. I think it'll be 2 or 3 seasons in the Championship at most. So
my fear is that the Premiership is like a big ravenous beast that chews up football teams and spits them out. And it doesn't matter how much you are, how good or bad you are, how much of people love you or hate you or whatever it may be. For the Premiership, it's all irrelevant because it's a big machine that chews up clubs. and spits them out. And then how you deal with being spat out or being chewed up and remaining in that machine is how you cope. My fear is that Wrexham will get chewed up so dramatically. It's then how they recover from that afterwards. Don't get me wrong. The big whole thing in the UK is Saturday night, you either go to watch Wrexham, or if you're away, you go to watch Wrexham away, or if you didn't go to a football match at all, you do whatever. Saturday night, you would turn on Match of the Day on BBC and you would watch the Premiership, or then it was Division 1, when in the olden days, you'd watch the kind of top level of British football. And Match of the Day was kind of the thing. If you made Match of the Day, so normally if we did well in the FA Cup, you would make Match of the Day, and you would have your Gary Linekers, you'd have your Jimmy Hills in the olden days. You'd have these pundits who would talk about your club, and you'd be like, wow, like Jimmy Hill is talking about Wrexham, or Gary Lineker is talking about Wrexham, and you get like, it'd be like properly, we've properly made it. I would love for Wrexham to be on Match of the Day on a regular basis. My fear is that we'll be on a regular basis. The people around the country would just watch us getting beat every week, like Leicester and Southampton are at the moment. They're getting whooped every single week, and they are last on Match of the Day.
9 points in a Premier League season too. That's all they got, and that's
exactly.
Bad.
Would I want that for Wrexham? No, because it doesn't matter how much of a fan you are and how much you love your club. You don't want to see it get absolutely hammered every week. And the excitement, the sheen of playing Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal. We've done that already, and we've beaten them already, so it doesn't really matter, does it? West Ham, again, beaten them already, done that, been there, got the t-shirt. All these big clubs. The sheen of playing them and getting them back to the Stoke Carras. Some of them for the first time. I mean, we've never played Leeds. How is that possible? How is it we've never played Leeds? That's incredible.
Really? So, never?
Never played Leeds. Never played
Leeds.
Gosh. So, again, the sheen of being on Match of the Day and being in that top division would be great. But my fear is that we just don't have the amount of enormous... there's a reason why that top 6 is that top 6. Or, in Man U's case, top 17. Haha. They're a reason, because they've spent a long time building up their resources and everything else to be able to stay and keep the status quo. And it's a closed shop. It's very much a closed shop, because you need such an enormous amount of resources to have any chance of competing. And even then, if you threw 600, 700, 800 million pound at it, chances are you still wouldn't be able to get the players that you would need to be able to compete at that level, because they've done it over years and years and years. My fear is that even with the best intentions, Wrexham would struggle, and they would struggle dramatically. And the point is, I wouldn't want Wrexham to be, as we've got the potential record now of being back to back to back, I also don't want to be Wrexham have the least amount of points in the Premier League history. I don't want that stat. I don't want that to be ours.
I think no one wants that, but I don't think it'll go that way. I think we're in for a very interesting couple years. I dare even say we might even go up and then get spat back, but then we might use the parachute payments to recruit well and go back up and lock ourselves back in as a Premier League team. But I mean, the future is, we can only speculate. But
absolutely.
as we know right now, it's going to be Championship next year. It's in our hands. It is great. And just on this quick note, with your Eat More Chips podcast, have you ever thought about an Eat More Chips chippy?
We'd eat the profits. That's the problem. There'd be no profit.
You could use the chip paper, but it could be the Eat More Chips logo, the flag, and you just wrap the chips up. Eat More Chips chip. I think I'm onto something. That's a free one for you.
I think you are. The thing is, I am very, very selective about my chips. Okay? Don't just assume you can get a potato, chop it up, stick it in some fat, take it out, and you've got the perfect chip. There is a way to do it. You have to use the right potato. Okay? You have to get the right fat. So, some of this vegetable oil you can get, which I'm sure is great for the environment, is not good for chips because it doesn't cook them properly. It doesn't cook them well. You need chips to be properly fluffy on the inside and crispy on the outside. I can't be doing with soft chips all the way through. When I grab a chip, I want the chip to stand up straight, just like me first thing in the morning. Right? I don't want that chip. You know what I mean? I don't want a floppy chip. I want a good crispy chip. You know what I mean? Because then when you put the tomato sauce or the gravy or the curry or the mushy peas, you'll get a good crunch with that taste. It's not just a case of bunging potatoes in fat and then that's it. So my problem is to try and, if we had a chippy, I'd be an absolute terrible chef, because I'd be like, no, not good enough. No, not good enough. No, not good enough. No, not good enough. It's very rare for me to find the perfect chip. I mean, the one I'm going to take you in, we're in November, I am going to take you to Jonesy's, because Jonesy's it was established in 1923, so it's over 100 years old, right? It's a proper old calf chippy, so the actual bit where you sit down is only about, I don't know, 8 tables, and you go up, you order, you get a nice big plate of nice big fish, nice big chips, mushy peas, bread and butter as well, so you get a proper chip butty. It's proper old school, but it's great. And I'm grabbing you and I'm taking you there, and we're definitely going there, feeding you that, because that is an experience in itself.
I can't wait. I can't. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. And like you said, I would cream if it was Wrexham versus Coventry at that time. But it'll just be nuts. It'll be insane. We got a big future ahead of us, Welsh Techie. A big future ahead.
Whatever happens, mate, you're gonna enjoy it, and I know you are, because you're gonna suck it all in. Loads of people are gonna, give you whatever. I mean, you're not gonna have to buy a drink all the time you're there. So, yeah, it's gonna be brilliant. You're gonna love it, mate. You're gonna absolutely love it, and I'm looking forward to it, because again, like I said before, you'll get to see something which I look at every day, and you'll look at it in a completely different light, and you'll go, and then I will go, oh yeah, I've never seen that beauty. I've never seen that part of my town like that, in that way. So you will introduce me to something new, which is amazing.
I can introduce you to many things, Welsh Techie. Oh dear. Well, on that note, just give yourself a quick shout out. Where can people find you? Are you on socials? I imagine you are. I know you are, but let's get some love going your way.
Thank you, mate. Well, we're on all the socials. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Street. I don't know what it's called. The one that's anyway, one of them. If you just look for @tweetmorechips, because obviously that goes back to when it was Twitter, but that's got a bit irrelevant now because it's not anymore. But @tweetmorechips is our handle. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Eat More Chips Podcast. We're on Facebook. Eat More Chips Podcast group. We're now on YouTube, so we've got our Eat More Chips podcast channel on YouTube, because now we started, after a committee meeting the other day, we put our 100th out for the first time ever on video as well, and the guys agreed, that's something that we should be doing more often, so we're now going to put the episodes on video and audio, which is great, and people seem to be enjoying those, which is fantastic, so you get to see our ugly mugs, which is brilliant. And basically, at the end of the day, we are going to do it whether one person listens or 1 million people listen, because it's just about us enjoying ourselves and having a bit of banter. For me personally, I get to connect with my brother and my best mate every week, and for me that's incredible. So I do it for me. I don't really do it. It's just a bonus that I do it, that the rest of you get to witness it as well, and that's, I think, what it should be, because like we're having now, we could be now sitting around a pub table having a pint right now. Well, we'd probably be into our 5th or 6th pint by now, I would think. And easily with the bar staff sort of looking at us, tapping the bar, going, we've got to close in half an hour, so drink up please. And all that. We'll do it whatever. But yeah, if you want to pop along and comment and follow us, and we're always posting. I posted a load of pictures yesterday from before the game as the players were coming in, which is lovely. Again, that's something that you don't get Premiership game.
I love that, and that was in the Rowdy Army Discord.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was so cool, which you are a member of. So,
I am. Yeah, I post in the Rowdy Army Discord, which is great, because again, it's a great way to touch base with everybody and what's going on at the moment and all the latest news stories. And Rousey or one of the group members will post, have you seen this article, have you seen that article, look at this, look at that. It's brilliant because it draws you to stuff that maybe you wouldn't find. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't joined it, join the Rowdy Army Discord group. Join it now, because we don't have one. We don't do Discord because I can't work it out, and I'm busy enough as it is anyway. So Join that one. Yeah, join Rowdy Army Discord. You'll get to hear the latest stuff.
Well, that's a hell of a shout out. I'm supposed to be selling your podcast.
Mate, no, you got that.
But on that note, we do have a Patreon program. Links will be in the description down below. I'll also link to the Eat More Chips Spotify channel and any other channels I can fit in there. So we go give them some love. Give them a follow. Listen to them every week. It will make your weekend. I absolutely promise you that. This has been an enthralling chat, probably the longest I've ever had, and expect more like this because this is a new format. But just want to give a quick shout out to my executive producers. We've got Sarah, Anthony, Welsh Techie, Bryant, Not PC, and Mad Al, who are our executive producers. They get all those extra little perks. We love our executive producers. So if you want to know what that entails, be sure to have a look at the Patreon in the link down below. Just a quick shout out as well. Will, John, Aaron, Chris, Ryan, Jake, Deandra, Anthony, Mark, Neb. I've got a good story about that. Tune in next week. Ryan and Ben and Josh from the local pundit. Thank you guys so much for being part of my Patreon program, Rousey's Rowdy Army. It really does mean a lot. Money goes a long way, helping me get to Wrexham and helping me pay to continue doing what I do. So be sure to visit patreon.com. And on that note, I think we should call it a day, call it a night. We survived.
Just a live update. Wrexham Women 2, Cardiff City Women 1 at the moment, with at the end of the first half goals from Rousey Hughes, who scored, which is brilliant, and Abby Indenden for us. So we're 2-1 up against Cardiff. Come on, Wrexham!
Come on. Love it.
Perfect again. Come on!
Love it. All right, guys, we'll see you next week on Rousey's Wrexham Roundup. Thank you very much. Bye.